And it's our pleasure now to be joined on this Captiol Outlook profile with Representative Eric Barlow. Dr. Barlow, welcome.
Good morning.
We're here at your childhood home. Describe for our viewers where we're at.
So you're on Dead Horse Creek in Campbell County, southwestern Campbell County. And I grew up here with my two sisters. My dad grew up here before I did. My grandfather grew up across the ridge to the north, and my great-grandfather came here and grandmother came here in the late 1800s. So I guess there's been Barlows in this country for quite a while.
It's a beautiful, quiet place. You were telling me earlier, and I want to tell our viewers, you grew up without television.
That's right.
You rented movies at the library for the big treat on Friday night and 16mm films.
That's right.
What did you do when you were a child?
Well, I guess we worked a lot. We actually did a lot. We had a lot of chores, big garden. My mother and father both liked to garden, so we had a big garden just actually behind the camera where the camera is. And it was low next to the creek, so it always frosted early. So when school was starting, we were harvesting garden. That was part of the deal. We did, in the summer, you know, I would ride looking at cattle, checking water, moving bulls, building fence. We didn't do 4-H, didn't do FFA. We basically stayed on the ranch and worked that's what we did. Now, as we got older in school, to be fair, my folks let us do activities. So we did some sports and we did music and theater and things like that. But that was, old when we were older, 9th, 10th and on. So.
And you went to school in Gillette?
In Gillette, yeah. We rode the bus, got the bus at the interstate, rode the bus, and people hear about, how was it back then different than now? Of course, you can talk about seat belts and things. But when I was in 9th and 10th grade and I wrestled, the bus would literally, coming back from wrestling meet somewhere, they'd literally drop me at the interstate, and if someone wasn't there to pick me up, I'd walk home.
Part of the workout?
It might be 10 o'clock at night, dark, but I'd walk home in the winter. Now, if it was a blizzard, they obviously didn't let me off. But,
sure.
But there was several nights that I walked home, and people would say, "Are you kidding me? It's 5 miles."
Yeah,
but I knew the short way.
We are. Well, maybe that cut off a mile or two, but we're quite a ways away from.
Yeah, there's about 5 miles
from the interstate.
Yeah.
After high school, you actually went to school in Texas for a little while.
Well, after high school, I actually served in the military. And then worked overseas for a year, and then went to Texas Christian for a year, did work some more, and then Colorado State, where I completed my veterinary degree.
And your interest in the veterinary sciences came from how you were raised? Was there a decision along the way? Or?
No, actually the interest didn't come from how I was raised.
Wow.
The interest came from wanting an occupation to make a living, so that and be close to agriculture. It wasn't because I thought I had any particular propensity to be a good veterinarian because I was raised on a ranch. It was because I was interested in having a good occupation that I was marketable anywhere, and maybe have the opportunity to come back to the ranch. And it worked out that I was able to come back to the ranch in time, but I wasn't one of those folks, and I meet a lot of them. I have a lot of people that approach, oh, my daughter or son, or I've been wanting to be a veterinarian all my life, and what do I got to do, and etc. And I didn't do that. I was 27 years old, and I said, I got to get an occupation, and veterinary school seems like it'll fit that bill, and I'm going to go do that. So. You
met your wife in junior high?
Yep, Kelly and I are 9th grade sweethearts. Doesn't mean we've been continual sweethearts since then. A lot of things happen in life, but yeah, her family moved here in the coal boom days in the early 80s. Lived in Wright before Wright was actually an incorporated town. It was still a company town. And she was bused to Gillette. Wright did not have a junior high at that time, so they were bused to Gillette. And yeah, we met at Twin Spruce Junior High, and then just stayed in touch after she moved back to Mississippi, and stayed in touch. And years later, we're married and have 2 wonderful children. And anyway, life goes on.
You and your wife both. You live here. You're somewhat isolated, but you're so involved in your community. You serve obviously in the legislature. Your wife is actively involved in Gillette. Why community service? Why has that become so important to you?
I guess maybe it was the way we were both raised. And certainly in our community and with our children. And I guess probably for us as a couple, it started with our children. We want our children to understand and value the things that are in our community, whether it's the educational opportunities, which, by the way, we mostly homeschooled our children. which is another, I guess, maybe unique characteristic for 20 years ago. It's not very, maybe it's quite more common now, but 20 years ago it wasn't as common. But we just wanted our children to have that public service aspect in their lives. So we would volunteer at the soup kitchen. We're still volunteering. Our kids are gone, we're still volunteering. College education has been very important to us. My wife has an education degree and a master's in special ed with my veterinary degree. So education is important, so we're quite involved in the community college. Gillette campus, or Gillette College here, is a tremendously successful and well-supported community program. Certainly a part of the Sheridan College district, but and she's on the foundation board for that. And there's just lots of opportunities to, I guess, be a part of your community and make it a better community for other folks. And that's where we tend to put our time and energy and our finances when we can.
And you've landed in the legislature. You first began serving in 2013 and have won now re-election. Why did you want to become a member of the Wyoming legislature?
I guess everybody has a different journey. My journey is probably 25 years to the time before I made the decision to run. First, I was an activist, meaning I had a problem and I was going to fix my problem. And it was about property rights. Oil and gas property rights. You can remember the DM&E Railroad days, you know, in Weston County, Southern Campbell, Weston County. So it was about property rights. I cared about that, and I was going to fix something. I mean, I was impassioned, and this is in the mid-90s. I was just coming back to Wyoming, late 90s, coming back to Wyoming, practicing veterinary medicine in Newcastle, and learning about, you know, these issues, and saying, I'm going to fix this. So that was an activist. And then I started understanding through neighbors and friends and folks that are also involved that there's bigger things than your one issue. So I became an advocate. Property rights isn't just my property rights, but it's a bigger issue. And how does that interact with you know, our state budget when it comes to oil and gas development? And how does that, so you become an advocate, you become, you know, broader. It's bigger than my issue. It's how do you impact other people's issues, and how do you maybe come up with solutions? And then I guess you get to a point, and this probably occurred for me in the early 2000s when the coal bed methane was, you know, booming here, and I've been an activist. Then I was, you know, kind of trying to flesh out what being involved was. Then you just have to be more involved. You have to volunteer to be on boards. You have to volunteer to be part of working groups to deal with, you know, water discharge issues or things like that. You're becoming what I consider citizen. You're actually engaging in the processes, whether it's with the federal government, the BLM, in the case here with the energy development, or with local government, the county commissioners, and the role they may play in some of this development. And then you get to a place where I want to affect actually how things happen. And I want to be part of the policy making. And you get choices. You get choices, you know, county commissioner, you know, be on a board or a commission. And so because I was in agriculture and I was practicing as a veterinarian at the time, I kind of decided, well, I'm going to start in where I'm most comfortable, and that was agriculture. So I applied to be on the Wyoming Livestock Board and was appointed. And served 6 years, which is a term on the livestock board, and learned a lot. Learned a lot about the government process, executive branch, engaged with the legislative process. Obviously, that was right after the livestock board had some challenges with funding, not having enough funding, and so there was a lot of things to learn. But you still weren't in a policy making process. You were an administrator, you were an executive branch type thing. And I said, well, what's the next level? And the next level for me was Wyoming legislature, to kind of, I guess, get to the level where you actually were having an influence on the policies that, you know, affect people's lives and affect industries and affect, you know, the opportunities we have.
You made this comment when you were running for re-election. You said, I believe I'm becoming more adept at representing our community in the best interests of Wyoming. My goal continues to be legislative solutions that are purposeful, practical, and fiscally responsible. Has that been an evolving process for you on how to represent?
You know, for me, actually, probably the biggest challenge is I really do want to represent my constituency. I didn't come in, that doesn't say it, but I didn't come in with an agenda. Now, clearly, previous to my running, I'd had agendas, but I didn't come in with an agenda. I didn't say, I'm going to fix this problem. What I came in and says is, there are problems. I want to listen to what my constituency in the state of Wyoming, what the challenges are, and try to come up with ways that actually get to the issue, actually make a difference in not just the problem, but provide more of a solution longer term for people. And that's where, can it be challenging? Yes, but that's the rewarding part, is when you can get there.
Complete this sentence for me.
Go.
What I worry most about for Wyoming is?
What I worry most about for Wyoming. I've got to complete it. I can't just repeat it.
I had the easy part of this.
You had the easy part? You know, I don't know that I worry about anything for Wyoming. I think we have some challenges, and we can talk about those, whether it's our reliance on energy for revenues. I think we have challenges. But as far as a worry, I don't think we have a worry that's unique to Wyoming. Now, are we seeing evidence elsewhere that we're getting, let's say, polarized in our political discourse and things like that? But I don't think we're unique in Wyoming to that.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So I guess I don't worry for Wyoming. I think as long as citizens continue to step up and be involved and care about what's not only happening in their community, in the state, but most importantly within their families. And I think we have great opportunities.
Back to your life here on this beautiful ranch, on this beautiful day. We picked a great day.
Perfect.
To be here. It is a perfect day. You're slowing down with your veterinary practice. You still have this beautiful ranch. Is this ranch your hobby?
Oh, now, whoa, wait a minute.
No?
No. No.
What are your hobbies?
Well, I don't know that I have any hobbies, but the ranch is certainly not a hobby.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, I'm sure. But you
we have
must
plenty
enjoy
to do. No, I think we do enjoy it. Kelly and I, we do enjoy it, and our kids are, they're beginning their professional careers and moving on and doing their thing. So it's a little quieter than it used to be. The veterinary practice, I had a very, fruitful and enjoyable veterinary practice for 20 years. I did cattle and sheep. If you didn't eat them, I didn't treat them. That was my little motto. That was my niche, if you will. And I quit. I mean, I'm not retired, because that would mean I didn't have to work and I'd saved enough money. And so I just stopped that for a variety of reasons. One is because the legislature's taking more time. Two is with my children gone, I had less flexibility with having someone here to do things. And third, I'm just at a point where I don't need to be as busy and gone as much as the veterinary practice requires.
And it's a physically demanding practice. Yeah.
It is a demanding practice, and you're on the road a lot. And because I was a rural practitioner, I traveled. I didn't have a clinic. I went to ranches, in 13 different counties.
Dr. Eric Barlow, it's a pleasure for us to be here, and we appreciate your allowing us and being such a gracious host. We look forward to visiting with you more during the session. Thanks so much for joining us on Captiol Outlook.